Hello everybody and welcome back to a new video. My name is Sarah and today I'm here to do a book haul. It has been a little while and so these books are going to be actually the books that I feel like I've accrued since, I may have a couple books that I picked up maybe in like January, February, definitely since March up until now. I have about 27 books to talk through with you guys. Because like I said, I realized I haven't done a haul in a while, and I've got these organized in categories. I've got my book box books, the books that I got from Independent Bookstore Day, and then just books that I picked up here and there. So I think we're gonna go through the books that I picked up in book boxes first. So those would be Book of the Month and then the Adult Fairyloot subscription. I do also have some books that I had gotten through my Owl Crate subscription. However, I love Owl Crate and I love what they do and I love the curation of the boxes. However, their book selection that they've had recently just hasn't been what I've been interested in. I've actually since reached the end of my subscription period and I've let it expire. I'm just not super jazzed about a lot of the selections and the books that we've been getting recently just because they feel like they're on the younger side of YA, and I love YA books, but not necessarily the ones that border with middle grade. It's just not my jam. I'm not super into it. So I'm not going to be talking about those Owl Crate books because I'm just not super excited about them. Alright, so these Book of the Month books are not in order of like month. I just kind of jumbled them all together now that I'm thinking about it, but we're just gonna go with it as that. So the first book on the stack is Darling Girl by Liz Mikulski. This is a Peter Pan retelling. Instead of following Wendy or Jane, which was Wendy's daughter in like the Disney sequel movie, we are following Holly Darling, who is Wendy's granddaughter, and she kind of lives this like very content, successful lifestyle, but one day she gets a notice that her daughter, who has been in a coma for over a decade, has gone missing, and Holly immediately knows that Peter Pan is the culprit. And Peter Pan in this case is not the adventurous boy that never grows up, kind of rascally fun child that we all know from the Disney movie. He is instead this murderous dude, and so Holly has to track him down and get her daughter back, which her daughter there's like hints at she's got this weird kind of connection between our world and Neverland and kind of weird magical realism stuff, which makes sense because it's a Peter Pan retelling, but it just sounds like this cool like Peter Pan goes feral thriller, and I am very interested in it. I haven't really heard anybody talking about it, but I am curious. And next, I think I actually got it in the same month as Darling Girl, and that is The Hacienda by Isabel Canas. This is described as Mexican Gothic meets Rebecca. So in this novel, we are following Beatriz, and we're kind of in the shortly aftermath of the overthrow of the Mexican government, during which her father was executed and her home destroyed. So she doesn't really have anywhere to go, but this very wealthy, handsome man proposes to her, and she agrees to marry him despite the fact that there are some very sinister rumors kind of spread surrounding him and his recently deceased first wife. Beatrice kind of ignores that and is like, he's rich and handsome and I need a place to live. And so she agrees to marry him, and goes to live on the estate, but while there, some very creepy kind of occultish supernatural things start happening. She feels very unsafe in this house, but everybody's like, no, you're imagining things, it's fine. But at the same time, they're like, doing like salt rings and drawing all these weird like protective symbols and stuff, and she's just like, hello, I see what you're doing. But nobody really wants to help her, but she ends up kind of teaming up with this priest who's kind of like a rogue priest. He's described in the synopsis as also like a witch. And so they have to team up and figure out what malevolent force is haunting this house and kind of coming after Beatrice. So I loved Mexican Gothic, and I love Gothic horror stories, so I am looking forward to this one. And then next, I got True Biz by Sarah Novick. So this is a coming-of-age contemporary novel following a couple of students as well as the headmistress of this school for the deaf. And at this school, a series of kind of really bad events start happening, and the students and teachers have to really start banding together and kind of working through these events that are left very ambiguous in the synopsis. But it does say at the bottom, it says, "This is a story of sign language and lip reading, disability and civil rights, isolation and injustice, first love and loss, and above all, great persistence, daring, and joy. Absorbing and assured, idiosyncratic and relatable, this is an unforgettable journey into the deaf community and a universal celebration of human connection." And then I think also in the same month that I picked up True Biz, I think this was April, so my birthday month, so I got a free book to tack on as an add-on. So I picked up The Devil in the White City, Murder, Magic, and Madness of the Fair That Changed America by Eric Larson. This is kind of a nonfiction history of the Chicago World's Fair, the building of the World's Fair, and also H.H. Holmes, who is thought to be kind of behind a string of murders that happened in this very strange hotel that he built and then lured people to, it is presumed, to kill. Then I also have picked up The Maid by Nita Prose. This is a murder mystery novel. It's quite short, actually. And we are following a maid at this like very fancy hotel. She's kind of like a odd personality. She's kind of described as like this oddball with a lot of like idiosyncrasies, but she's very, very good at her job and is very focused on like orderly cleanliness and manners and etiquette as well. And so one day during her job, as she goes in to clean this rich man's suite, she stumbles across his dead body laying across the bed, and before she knows it, she's wrapped up in the investigation. And because of her kind of odd personality, she is then determined to be the lead suspect. But then, so then we're following her and kind of a series of people that she didn't really realize were friends of hers, as they try to figure out who actually killed this rich man. And so I've heard that our main character is just a very fun, unique character to follow, and I just love a good murder mystery, and it's one of those like locked room murder mysteries, which are always very interesting to me, so I'm excited about this one as well, and I'm going to keep saying that because I'm excited about all these books. And then I've also gotten from Book of the Month A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. This is supposed to be the first in a fantasy trilogy. I've heard really, really good things about this one. I've heard the writing and the world are absolutely gorgeous. And we're kind of like following this guy who grew up on this kind of magical island that is full of like elemental spirits, and he left the island to go study to be a bard, and now he's back, and the elemental spirits have suddenly started to kidnap a bunch of the women on the island, and so our bard has to team up with kind of his like childhood enemy in order to figure out why the spirits are kidnapping these girls and kind of where they're going and what is happening. And while doing so, of course, they uncover that everything is way more like deep and sinister than what they thought. But I've heard that it's just a really beautiful, like beautifully written book. And not to mention this cover is just really kind of pretty as well. So there's this one. And then I also have The Cartographers by Penn Shepherd. This follows a young woman who kind of grew up. Her father was a map maker. She grew up obsessed with maps and became a map maker. But her and her father had a falling out because they had this big argument over this cheap old gas station map that she was really focused on and her dad just kept like dismissing. Years later, after the fallout, her father is found dead in a library, and with him is this map that they were arguing about. And so our main character is like, well, what the heck is happening? And it becomes very clear that this map is now kind of one of the last in existence, and it's much more sinister and kind of, there's a lot more behind this map than what it looks like on the surface. It just kind of looks like a cheap gas station map. And she finds out that there is a man out there who going around and finding everybody that owns a copy of this map and taking it from them and killing them in the process. And so it's a very kind of culty underground map maker society involved in this, and it's supposed to be kind of like a map making thriller set in libraries and reference areas, and so it's gonna have kind of like that, I think, dark academia feel to it, but I am just kind of really interested in just the whole concept behind like secret society map makers. But yeah, there's this one. And then the last book of the month book that I have acquired relatively recently is actually the most recent one that I have acquired, and that is The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. This one, I'm actually going to read the synopsis to you of this one. I'm going to try not to do that with a lot of these books, but there are some in this list that I'm going to have to do that for. So it says, neither here nor there, but long ago, Luli al-Nazari is the midnight merchant, a criminal who, with the help of her jinn bodyguard, hunts and sells illegal magic. When she saves the life of a cowardly prince, she draws the attention of his powerful father, the Sultan, who blackmails her into finding an ancient lamp that has the power to revive the barren land at the cost of sacrificing all jinn. With no choice but to obey or be executed, Luli joins with the Sultan's oldest son and one of his infamous 40 thieves to find the artifact. Aided by her bodyguard, who has secrets of his own, they must survive ghoul attacks, outwit a vengeful jinn queen, and confront a malicious killer from Luli's past. In a world where story is reality and illusion is truth, Luli will discover that everything, her enemy, her magic, even her past, is not what it seems. Now she must decide who she will become. I think this is the first in a trilogy. I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm pretty sure this is a first in a series, though. I have heard very good things about this one. I know this one actually was on a lot of people's kind of anticipated release radar, so when I saw it on Book of the Month this past month, I was like, gotta grab that one. So then next I have my Adult Fantasy Fairyloot subscription books that I have acquired over the last few months. So the first one is City of Dusk by Tara Sim. This is following a city called the City of Dusk, where 4 realms converge, and each realm is ruled over by a god. There's the life, death, light, and darkness realms, so they all converge on the City of Dusk. And for whatever reason, these 4 gods that rule over the realms have decided to withdraw their favor, and because of that, the city and like the realms themselves are starting to die. And so each god has an heir, and so the 4 heirs decide that they're all going to team up, and they're going to figure out why the gods have decided to withdraw their favor and how to fix the situation. This is another one that I know a lot of people had on their anticipated release lists for this year, and so I was very excited to find that this was one of the books in the adult subscription box. And then another one from Fairyloot is Book of Night by Holly Black. This is Holly Black's first adult fantasy novel. She usually writes YA. I've never actually read a Holly Black novel. I know that's a shocker. She's a huge name here on BookTube, but I've never read one. But I have been quite curious about this book because we are following a main character who has the ability to steal people's shadows and kind of like pawn them off to people and use them as a magical source. And so, but that's like her stealing them and like selling them to other people is kind of like this black market type of thing. And so she's recently decided that she wants nothing to do with that world anymore. And so she wants to live like a normal life, but she quickly realizes that she can't just decide that. Once she's there, and things start dragging her back into the deep end, and she has a series of issues, and that's about all I know about this book. Is I was just super intrigued by kind of the shadowy magic and the idea of like stealing people's shadows, and selling them off and using them to like do nefarious things. It just intrigued me a lot. So again, I was excited to find this one in one of the past month's boxes. And then lastly, from Fairyloot's adult fantasy subscription box, I have Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. This one I had actually heard absolutely nothing about, hadn't even heard of it until it arrived in a box actually just a few days ago. But basically, it's about what the title is, Her Majesty's Royal Coven. So the Queen has this coven of witches that kind of helps keep kind of the magical world and the human world kind of like in line and separated from each other. But this coven, which is like centuries old, suddenly discovers this prophecy that talks about like kind of destruction within their own group. And so 4 of the witches who used to be kind of childhood best friends but have since drifted apart end up having to come back together and try to I guess outwit the prophecy and save the coven, which in turn then saves the human and magical world from clashing. I think this is another one that is the first in a trilogy. Again, I'd never actually heard about this one, but it definitely sounds very fun and interesting, and this cover is just super like bright and fun, and I really like it. Also have, I don't know, I think that's in Latin. And then if we, hold on, just wait for this because I gotta show you this. Look at this, it's pink. It's pink. It's wild, and I love it, and I'm excited for this. So then next, I'm going to go through the books that I picked up during Independent Bookstore Day. It was kind of a national holiday, and we have 3 independent bookstores within the city that I live in. There was 3 others in surrounding towns that also participated in kind of the area's celebration. I did only end up going to the 3 that are within the city that I live, but rest assured, I picked up plenty of books while I was there celebrating. The first of which is You Let Me In by Camilla Bruce. This is another one that I actually am going to read the back of the synopsis for because I think there's a lot of like subtle intricacies to explaining what this book is about. So it says, Cassandra Tipp is dead, or is she? After all, the notorious recluse and eccentric best-selling novelist has always been prone to flights of fancy, and everyone in town remembers the shocking events leading up to Cassie's infamous trial. She may have been acquitted, but the insanity defense only stretches so far. Cassandra Tipp has left behind no body, just her massive fortune and one final manuscript. Then again, there are enough bodies in her past. Her husband, Tommy Tipp, whose mysterious disembowelment has never been solved, and a few years later, the shocking murder-suicide of her father and brother. Cassandra Tipp will tell you a story, but it will come with a terrible price. What really happened out there in the woods, and who has Cassie been protecting all along? Read on if you dare. So this is definitely obviously like a very spooky thriller novel. I've been interested in Camilla Bruce for a little while now because of the next book that I actually also picked up, and that is In the Garden of Spite by Camilla Bruce. So this is a novelization about kind of the most well-known female serial killer in the United States. It says, an audacious novel of feminine rage about one of the most prolific female serial killers in American history and the men who drove her to it. So it's about the Black Widow of Laporte. I saw a female serial killer, and I was like, all right, I'd like to buy this, please. This has kind of been on my radar for a while now. I know I'd heard about somebody else, I think I'd watched on YouTube, had read it and kind of talked about it, and they said that it was really good. And so I don't know, I've been kind of keeping my eye out for this one, and this was much harder to find than You Let Me In. I hadn't seen it anywhere in stores until Independent Bookstore Day, and I saw this and I picked it up, and then I saw You Let Me In, which I had seen before and it had caught my eye, but I was like, no, if I'm gonna read a Camilla Bruce book, this is the first one I want to read. But then I just kind of was like, had zero like inhibitions about buying books and was like, no, I'll buy this one, and I'll buy this one, and I'll buy this one. It's Independent Bookstore Day. It's basically Christmas, guys. So I picked them both up. I also picked up Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. This is her newest book. I actually have not read anything by her. She's written The Glass Hotel and Station 11, which both of them I've heard phenomenal things about. I haven't read any of them. This one was on Peruse Project's most anticipated releases of this year list, and so it caught my eye, it caught my interest, and when I saw it I was like, let's just pick it up. This is one that I am gonna read the synopsis on because it's confusing but very interesting. Edwin St. Andrew is 18 years old when he crosses the Atlantic by steamship, exiled from polite English society following an ill-conceived diatribe at a dinner party. He enters the forest, spellbound by the beauty of the Canadian wilderness, and suddenly hears the notes of a violin echoing in an airship terminal, an experience that shocks him to the core. 2 centuries later, a famous writer named Olive Llewellyn is on a book tour. She's traveling all over Earth, but her home is the second moon colony, a place of white stone, spired towers, and artificial beauty. Within the text of Olive's best-selling pandemic novel lies a strange passage. A man plays his violin for spare change in the echoing corridor of an airship terminal as the trees of a forest rise around him. When Gasbury Roberts, a hotel detective in the black-skied night city, is hired to investigate an anomaly in the North American wilderness, he uncovers a series of lives upended. The exiled son of an earl driven to madness, a writer trapped far from home as a pandemic ravages Earth, and a childhood friend from the night city who, like Gasbury himself, has glimpsed the chance to do something extraordinary that will disrupt the timeline of the universe. So if that doesn't sound interesting, I don't know what to tell you. But it sounds interesting to me. So I'm looking forward to it. I haven't really heard anybody talk about like how they feel about the book. I've just heard people talk about them being excited about it. And then another one that I picked up is How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. This is one that's kind of been on my radar, but I've been a little bit afraid to pick it up because it is a pandemic novel. This is not about COVID, but like it's a plague novel. And so basically there's these researchers that are in the Arctic and they uncover a body of a girl who's like, frozen in ice. When they uncover her and let her thaw out, they release this kind of ancient bacteria illness that has obviously been kept alive through cryostasis in the Arctic, and they release it to the world, and it's very catastrophic. But this follows kind of several different characters all across the world, kind of coping in different ways. Some of them are scientists trying to find a cure. Others are basically working at this like amusement park dedicated to terminally ill children. Another are like a grandmother and her granddaughter kind of looking for cosmic solutions, but the way it's like worded, I'll read the back. It says, from funerary skyscrapers to hotels for the dead to interstellar starships, Sequoia Nagamatsu takes readers on a wildly original and compassionate journey spanning continents, centuries, and even celestial bodies to tell a story about the resilience of the human spirit, our infinite capacity to dream, and the connective threads that tie us all together in the universe. And I think I just am really excited about like how hopeful and uplifting it seems, and just like the resilience of humanity. And so that's what had me really interested in this one. So then I also picked up Hollow by B. Catling. I picked up this book completely on a whim. I saw the cover, found it, kind of get a little closer. It's like horses. This one has like a bird and a snake on its leg. But I found the art style really kind of like weird. There's a fish coming out of here. I just noticed that. Kind of weird and unsettling, and it just caught my eye. And then I read the synopsis and I was like, all right, we're picking this up. I've never heard of this book. I have no idea like anything about it, but it just sounds weird. And this is another one that I'm gonna read the back of, because it's very vague. But it says, after the sudden death of the High Church's sacred oracle, the world spirals deeper into bedlam. Evil forces envelop the countryside. The line between life and the afterlife begins to blur, and a series of strange mysteries unfolds. A young monk has ecstatic visions and loses his ability to speak, and an underground revolution is sparked in a small village, with a woman called Dolgret at the helm, and Barry Foley, a mercenary, leads his gang of marauders across the treacherous terrain filled with giants and dangerous sirens to deliver the one thing that can restore order to the divine landscape. As reality bends, a series of brutal adventures illuminates the nature of fate, beauty, and doom alike. Rich with action and fantastic creatures, Hollow ushers the reader through a world where holy secrets are unearthed, art mirrors life, and death looms over everything. Obviously, it's a very short novel, and it sounds like it's a standalone, so I'm quite interested to see how this author is going to manage like this kind of intricate sounding world building, and kind of develop the plot in such a small short of time. But we'll see, and it just looks and sounds very intriguing. So then I also picked up Black Widows by Kate Quinn. This book I discovered through M over at Ghost Reads. This was in, I think, her top 10 of last year, and so I was quite interested in it because of that. This is a thriller novel, and basically we're following a Mormon family of a husband and 3 wives, although it's hinted that there's a potential 4th wife that no one knows about. And the husband mysteriously dies, and all of the wives become suspects, not only to the police but to each other. And so we are following each of the wives as we try to figure out who done it, who killed him, and kind of like what the husband was hiding, because of course they're going to uncover some quite sinister, malicious secrets about him. But basically this was a thriller that Em really loved, and so because of that I just wanted to read it. And I figured if she loved it, then I'm gonna enjoy it as well. And then I also picked up Trippy Arcadia by Kit Mayquest, and can we just take a moment and enjoy this cover, because holy moly, the color scheme, the art, it's gorgeous and I love it. It says a gothic novel, and basically that's all that you need to know about this. It is a gothic novel, so of course there's going to be a house and kind of an unsettling family and creepy things happening. We follow a young woman she's a med school dropout, and she's desperate for a job, so she gets hired on by the super rich family to be the doctor's like assistant during the day, and then to kind of be like the butler-esque person for all these lavish parties that the family holds in the evenings, where she very quickly learns that this family is entrenched in debauchery, It is not quite the upstanding family that they like to present to daytime society. But while during all of this like uncovering of wildness that this family does, she also quickly learns that the patriarch of the family is the reason that her father lost his job and also like critically injured and is now going bankrupt. And so the patriarch of the family that she serves is kind of the reason behind her father's downfall, and so she decides to get revenge. It says a propulsive and atmospheric modern Gothic filled to the brim with all the splendor of the Great Gatsby and all the secrets, lies, and darkness that opulence can hide. And that little tagline itself sold me on this book. It also, I think, it says the perfect next read for fans of Mexican Gothic, and we already know by my description of the Hacienda that I loved Mexican Gothic, and so if you're gonna equate a book to Mexican Gothic, I'm gonna want to pick it up. So I picked this one up. And then during Independent Bookstore Day, you would think I would be done picking up books during that day, but I was not. I picked up Luck and Booth by Jenny Fagan. So this is another one with kind of a weird synopsis, and I want to make sure I get it right. So guess who's gonna read the inside cover again? Me. There are stories tucked away on every floor of 10 Luck and Booth clothes. 1910 Edinburgh. Jessie McRae has been sent to a tenement building by her recently deceased father to bear a child for a wealthy man and his fiancée. The harrowing events that follow lead to a curse on the building and its residents, a curse that will last for the rest of the century. Over 9 decades, 10 Luck and Booth clothes bears witness to emblems of a changing world outside its walls. An infamous madam, a spy, a famous beat poet, a coal miner who fears daylight, a psychic. These are some of the residents whose lives are plagued by the building's troubled history and despair at sometimes chilling ways. The curse creeps up the 9 floors as the suppressed spirit world swells to the surface, desperate for the true horror of the building's longest kept secret to be heard. So this sounds creepy and very interesting, and I just love the ideas of like buildings and like the setting itself kind of being the problem and kind of the antagonist, and so which is why I like Gothic novels so much, but this definitely feels very different than anything I've ever read, so I'm really interested in this one. And then lastly, from Independent Bookstore Day, I picked up The Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon. This is said to be inspired by Frankenstein. And so the tagline sounds super interesting. It says, from New York Times bestselling author of The Drowning Kind comes a genre-defying new novel inspired by Mary Shelley's masterpiece Frankenstein that brilliantly explores the eerie mysteries of childhood and the evils perpetrated by the monsters among us. So we're following 2 timelines, 1978 and 2019. So in 1978, we're following a woman who is kind of this world-renowned psychologist because of like her just compassionate approach to mentally ill people, and she lives in this house with her 2 grandchildren, and one day she brings home another child to start taking care of, and so the 3 children kind of create this like monster club. Like the new children is this very like quiet, kind of unsettling child, and then in 2019 a young woman is abducted, and there are claims of a monster sighting surrounding this abduction, and so the 2 kind of timelines are gonna kind of like, you know, come together somehow and be related. I don't really know how because I haven't read the book yet. But I don't know, this is one that I've had my eye on, especially because I was very curious with it being kind of inspired by Frankenstein. I don't know, it just sounded interesting, and it sounds like there's creepy children involved, which I love as a horror element. Hang in there, guys. We're almost done. I've just got a handful of books left, and these are the books that I have just kind of acquired on my own throughout the past few months, just randomly. The first of which is this beautiful Folio Society copy of Hals Moving Castle, which Connor got for me for my birthday. This is the box that it comes in, and this is the book itself. And I just was really excited for it because Howl's Moving Castle is one of my favorite films of all time. I know it's a children's film, but I love it so much. And then it has really pretty end papers. And then it's even got some pretty illustrations in it. Yeah, it's my favorite Studio Ghibli film, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's like a comfort film for me, so I've wanted to read the book for a while now, and so Connor got me the beautiful Folio Society copy for my birthday. So thanks, Connor. You're the best. I also have picked up The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. Stuart Turton also wrote The Devil and the Dark Water, which I read and absolutely loved last year. And so this is more, The Devil and the Dark Water was like a murder mystery, but with kind of like supernatural elements. This is the same, but also very, very different. It's got the murder mystery and the supernatural elements, but basically, Evelyn Hardcastle dies during this like dinner party, and we have this person who, in order to figure out kind of the murder mystery, it says the rules of Blackheath. Evelyn Hardcastle will be murdered at 11 p.m. There are 8 days and 8 witnesses for you to inhabit. We will only let you escape once you tell us the name of the killer. Understood? Then let's begin. So every morning our main character wakes up in the body of a different witness, and then follows kind of the timeline that they follow, the witness, leading up to the events of Evelyn's death. And so our main character has to collect all the clues and figure out kind of what happened and who done it by literally reliving the experience of each of these witnesses. I've heard that The Devil in the Dark Water, people like that one more, but I've not heard bad things about this one. So I'm just excited, especially because I really liked Stuart's writing in The Devil in the Dark Water. So the next one that I picked up randomly was actually quite a random pickup. I had never heard of this book, didn't really know much about it until I saw the cover, read the back, and decided that I had to have it. And that is Jawbone by Monica Ojeda. This is a translation from Spanish. It's originally published in Spanish, and so I have the English translation. This is one that I definitely have to read the back of. So it says, when Fernanda, Annalise, and their friends from the Delta Bilingual Academy convene after school, Annalise leads them in thrilling but increasingly dangerous rituals to a rhinestoned, Dior-scented drag queen god of her own invention. Even more perilous is the secret Annalise and Fernanda share, rooted in a dare in which violence meets love. Meanwhile, their literature teacher, Miss Clara, who is obsessed with imitating her dead mother, struggles to preserve her deteriorating sanity. Each day, she edges near to a total break with reality. Interweaving pop culture references and horror concepts drawn from Herman Melville, H.P. Lovecraft, and anonymous creepypastas, Jawbone is an ominous, multivocal novel that explores the terror inherent in the pure potentiality of adolescence and the fine line between desire and fear. I think what hooks me the most about this book is it reminds me a lot of Bunny by Mona Awad, at least like the synopsis does. Not necessarily in like the plot, but like the vibe of this blurring of reality and this cult-like group of girls and this like psychological horror feel that I am definitely picking up from the synopsis. So I don't know, I'm just super intrigued by this. I've also picked up The Bone Orchard by Sarah A. Mueller. This is one that, again, I had actually heard about from Prue's Project's video of most anticipated releases of 2022. Alright, I hate to do this again, but I've already tried to explain this, and it's not working. So I am going to read the inside cover. It says, tucked away behind a notorious house of ill repute, there is a garden where the trees are grown from bones and nourished by the darkest of secrets. The clattering, ghastly harvest is tended to by the women who live and work at the orchard house. Charm, the madam, and her haunting, beautiful charges. Shame, justice, desire, pride, and pain. except on Tuesdays when the Emperor alone calls at Orchard House to see his personal concubine, until the day he summons Charm instead to the palace to charge her with his dying decree. Choose which of his horrible sons will inherit the empire by discovering which one has been responsible for his murder. If she completes this final task, she will be freed from a life of bondage and servitude. Torn between the dead Emperor's will and the whispers of her own ghosts, Charm must choose justice for an empire she hates or vengeance at the cost of her own freedom. I don't know, that just sounded super interesting to me. So I picked it up. I've also recently picked up Follow Me to Ground by Sue Rainsford. This is a very short book, but it's one that I've had my eye on for a little while now. This is another one with a beautiful cover. But basically we follow this young woman and her father who heal the people of this village by literally like splitting their bodies open and then burying them in the ground. And then they kind of just like sit there in the earth, and a few days later they come out and they're like totally fine. The village appreciates them for what they've done, but they're also like not entirely human, and so they're kind of like kept at arm's length until one day the woman meets like this villager that she's never really met before, and they start falling in love, but then this starts to cause problems with kind of like her role in the village and her role as this like kind of macabre healer. And I don't know, the idea of just like splitting people's bodies open and burying them in the dirt in order to heal them is just creepy but interesting, and I've heard good things about this one. I've heard it's creepy and interesting, so I'm hoping that I feel the same. And then I've also picked up Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead by El Casamino. This is the second book in the Finlay Donovan series. It's a fun kind of like cozy murder mystery series following this author who one day goes to Panera Bread and she writes murder mysteries and like murder thriller stories, and while at Panera Bread discussing kind of these plot issues that she's having with her current book, she's discussing these with kind of her agent. A woman overhears her and mistakes her as a hit woman, and so then Finlay finds herself wrapped up in this kill job that she is inadvertently given, and it just kind of gets way out of hand. And the way that the first one ends is crazy, and so this second one it sounds like it's gonna pick right back up from this cliffhanger that we were left on in the first one, and I'm just very excited because I love Finlay as a character and I really loved the first one. And then lastly, we are finally at the end of all the books that I've acquired so far over the past few months, and that is Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. This one actually sounds like thematically similar to The Sea of Tranquility in the sense that we are following like many different timelines from like the bombing of Constantinople and the fall of Constantinople to kind of this like school play to this like very far future time, and then the story, there's like a kind of a piece of a story that ends up like traveling through all of these different timelines and linking them all together, and I don't know, it sounded super interesting. It's quite a chunkier book. It's kind of like hefty, but I don't know, I'm really curious about it. I haven't read anything by Anthony Doerr yet. I know he published All the Light We Cannot See, which I've heard really good things about that one. Haven't really heard anything about this one, but I'm very curious. So those are all of the books that I have acquired over the past several months. I'm not going to lift them up because I physically can't hold them all. If you're interested in any of these books, or like you have read any of them and you absolutely loved them, or you didn't love them, let me know down in the comments below because I love hearing from you guys. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you consider sticking around and subscribing if you haven't already. But as always, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!